You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
All right, good morning. It is Wednesday, August 7th. Rosie, can you believe that Sidney Crosby is 37 today?
He is, eh? Is it your birthday too? Do you have the same birthdays? Oh, great. Nick left. Crosman, 37. I don't know. It's weird when these guys get older, man. We got Cory Cross on today, and you just assume these guys are younger, and they're just not. They're getting, it just ticks by, and I guess that's a sign of us getting too old, me getting too old. Nick's here, Nick's not here. 37 years old. I remember when he got drafted, him and Ovi, back-to-back number ones, and look at Ovi these days too. He's getting up there. He's Mr. Gray Hair. I want to see him in camp this year and see if he's packed on. Are you with me here still, or am I free?
Yeah, I guess so, Rosie. I don't know what's going on this summer with the technology we have for this podcast, but I thought I was missing you. You thought you were missing me. I don't know what's going on here, buddy. But yeah, really? Crosby's 37. Congrats to him.
Yeah, that's wild, man. He's getting up there, pushing 40. That's wild, and that means that it's your birthday, is it not?
Yeah, that would mean it's my birthday. I guess we're having some technical issues on my end, so bear with us. But can you hear me loud and clear here, Rosie?
You're good, man. I'm getting tired of this bullshit, though.
Yeah, me too. I think we should just go on TV or something. But regardless, it is my birthday. Great to be with you today. Sidney Crosby's birthday, Mike Trout's birthday. It's a fun birthday to hold, especially you have a summer birthday too. I much prefer, and it's biased, obviously, because I have a summer birthday, but having a summer birthday just hits differently a bit,
Yeah, there was some good birthday parties out at the cabin and the lake and stuff like that, but we never got that classroom celly. We never got our name on the intercom from the office. I mean, we really struggled with that, though.
Yeah, you're right. Never had that whole deal in class, right? Where they're like, happy birthday. They got you a cupcake. So I can cope with you on that front. I guess the Stanley Cup's in Europe now. Oliver Ekman-Larsson got his day yesterday. So I believe they do a North American tour first and then off to Europe. Really cool to see, especially for somebody like Ekman-Larsson. I'm very curious to see what kind of position he holds in Toronto, especially under Craig Berube. There's the familiarity, obviously, with Shane Doan, Brad Treliving, of course, in their days in the desert. But I think it's important to bring up, this is not the same Ekman-Larsson as he was 10 years ago. Having said that, as I mentioned earlier on this summer, I really like what he brought to the table, specifically in the Stanley Cup playoffs for the Florida Panthers. Thought he was excellent.
Yeah, he could be a piece, right? He's not going to be the man. He's not going to be the stud, but he's got good hockey in him for sure. Tons of experience. He's got a pedigree that is quality. And it's just, to me, I couldn't care less if he knows Shane Doan, if he couldn't care less. It's how do you handle the market? What's your confidence level? Can you get off to kind of a good start and get comfortable and establish, this is my zone, this is my lane, and this is where I'm going to live, and play that role well. It's not always going to be perfect, but if expectations from the market can be kind of hampered, and if he can handle the market and perform to a level that's reasonable and hit up to expectations, which should not be too inflated for the guy, because like you say, it's not 10 years ago and he's not 24 years old, but I think there's a spot for him here where he can do that second pairing thing very well and just chug along and be solid and just be that guy that we're always happy to have back there.
Yeah, I think we're looking for some reliability. I'm very intrigued to see where they play him. I guess Timothy Liljegren is coming back, especially after that contract was handed out, especially looking at the fact that we're at August 7th. So on paper, it scares the hell out of me. I won't lie, to have Ekman-Larsson with Liljegren. Maybe it works on the ice. They're from the same native land, of course, in Sweden. I think at the very least, that's how it's going to start, because I don't think you want to split up Benoit and McCabe. We're going to talk about McCabe coming up here, but that certainly looks to be the way it's going to be deployed early on, is Ekman-Larsson with Liljegren. And that opens up the door, I think, for a big opportunity on the blue line on the power play. That's my intrigue, Rosie, what they do with the power play. We know they can snap it around in the regular season, but they need some different looks. Mark Savard's vision, I'm curious about that, and I'm curious if it includes, at least to start, maybe Oliver Ekman-Larsson running the first power play unit.
Yeah, we'll see what it is. I mean, it can't get any worse in the playoffs than it was. That's the one. I guess that's a positive, right? There's only one direction to go after that performance in the playoffs for the power play. When I look at it, I look and see, like a Morgan Riley, the pressure just gets, it just gets pulled back a little bit, right? The squeeze on Morgan Riley gets alleviated, and he can maybe feel that for, I don't know, maybe the first time in his career, if you want to say that. He's kind of always been told he's the man, needed to be the man, has to be the man. Now he can back off a little bit, and I think that with that alleviation of pressure, he can actually flourish a little bit and be like, good, the spotlight's not on me 24/7. The way the power play, the way the quarterback, and the way that decor performs isn't completely on my shoulders anymore. And I think that he's going to be more suited for that role. And I think I think he'll be a guy where we look at and say, thank God he's on our team. Absolutely love this guy. What a great season. Was there when we needed him. Came up big when he was supposed to. And he can kind of fill that role instead of always expectations are through the roof. Maybe he's not suited to handle that much load. And, people are talking about the wrong things with Morgan Riley. And now they can talk about the right things, because I think he's going to have some pressure alleviated.
Honestly, I think that's the key to everything here, and that's why you're trying to solidify your back end. That's why you bring in a Tanev. That's why you bring in an Ekman-Larsson. I think to take some of the load off Morgan Riley, who undoubtedly has felt the pressure the last couple of years, specifically with that contract. People are on him on a daily basis. I think he's been a consummate pro. I think he's been the epitome of just being a stud and being a first-class citizen here in Toronto since he entered this league way back when. And I think it's just only going to help when you have others that he can rely on in the back end. And I think if it helps and if it makes the power play different and it gives them a different look, then maybe you put Riley on PP2 and, you take some minutes away from him there. So I look at it as a plus. I think all around to add these two guys specifically, maybe a Hakanpää into the mix. I just think it helps all around with the decor, and that includes Morgan Riley, I think the de facto number one defenseman for this team. Speaking of D, Rosie, we have a former Maple Leaf defenseman coming on from the Pat Quinn era. Those are always fun. Cory Cross is going to drop by in about 10 minutes here.
I know, a little blast from the past, from a pretty cool era. Like you said, Pat Quinn era is always, I don't know what it is about that era. It was a pretty big one, I guess, but people look back and fondly at that, some of those players, whether, whoever it was or whatever happened, you look back at that era now and maybe it's just nostalgia, but you kind of smile when you think about it. So it'll be cool to get Cory on and pick his brain a little bit and tee up some questions that'll give us some insight into that time in his life.
The black and blue Toronto Maple Leafs, and the one thing I want to ask him about is the 2001 Stanley Cup playoffs, the Battle of Ontario, Game 3, scores the OT winner off a Nick Antropov rebound. I remember it vividly. I would probably think the marquee moment of Cory Cross's career. That building, man, go watch on YouTube. That building, same building the team plays in now, was just, it was pandemonium. It was nuts. Just the reaction to scoring that goal, mind you, in round one of the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's a way different atmosphere. So Cory Cross is coming up here on the podcast at the Leafs Nation 401. Here on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit the LeafsNation.com. The opening segment brought to you by Greta Bar YYZ. For a good time, find Greta, 590 King Street West. Weekly specials, live sports, over 60-plus arcade games. Let the games begin. Go big. Go to Greta Bar YYZ. So Jake McCabe is the guy I wanted to touch on today. Important to stress, I think, caught in the hoopla, all the conversations this summer, is the fact that this guy is now less than a year away from UFA next summer. You would have to think behind the scenes, Rosie, there has to, at the very least, been conversations about extending him. But I think so far, so good, the Jake McCabe tenure era in Toronto since being acquired by Kyle Dubas at the 2023 NHL trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Jake McCabe. He's 30 years old. He's not 35. And I just, you talk about, do you move him up and play him with Tanev or this or that? Like, I don't think you need to big brain it. He's just wicked on that third pairing with Simon Benoit. I just love when they're both out there. They quietly do their job very well. I think that McCabe has got that leadership factor in him. He's kind of like, you just look at him and you get a sense of calm, like he kind of knows what he's doing. I'd like his confidence to bump up a little bit, and I think it can when you got the decor that they've got this year, and hopefully that comes to fruition, and they've got a pretty solid 6 guys in every single night that know their role and are reliable and kind of hit all the right notes, right? So people are talking about moving him around and shoving him here, and what if he works there? Just leave him on the third pairing with Benoit. Love Benoit, love McCabe with him. Let them do their thing. Let them have, you got your first pairing, you got, whether Morgan Riley or Tanev, and hopefully that OEL, like you talk about with Lily, works out well in the second pairing. And then the third pairing of those two, though, that's just nice layering, man. You got your offensive product, you got your big guys, you got your shot block, and you got your physicality covered, and all of them can play D. It just looks solid. And I don't think you need to big brain and move it around or anything like that. I just love last year thinking about the games, looking at McCabe and Benoit out there, just going, I just like these guys. They can play simple. They can move shit to the outsides, get the puck to the hands of Austin Matthews or Nylander, whatever, get it out of the zone, north-south hockey, like Craig Berube says, and just play that role very well and just get better and better at it, have good facilitation beside themselves with good support, and just let their confidence grow. And every night, they can get a little bit better and just have finally a pretty bloody solid decor. That's the plan. Hoping it goes that way, but to set it up at this time of the year, I think it looks pretty solid. And I like McCabe right where he is. You don't need to big brain it. Don't need to make him be something that he's not.
Yeah, I agree. I think they got to be very careful with obviously numbering their pairings in the back end. Like if you're asking me right now, I'm putting Benoit and McCabe firmly ahead of Ekman Larson and Liljegren. I think the biggest question I have entering the season on the blue line is Simone Benoit. And I'm sure at some point in time here in the offseason, we'll get to him, just more so because he sort of came out of nowhere. Like he was a great value find last year, gets the extension. How's he going to duplicate that? What's it going to look like in year 2 as a Toronto Maple Leaf? Is he still going to have that confidence? Is the chemistry going to still be there with Jake McCabe? I think it's fair to wonder about Simone Benoit and Kenny Hackett yet again, a new coach in the mix as well. And I just think from a personnel standpoint, I probably have more faith in those two than, again, I have in Ekman Larson and Liljegren and that pairing. But I think I'm very curious to see how everything comes together. It's one thing, Rosie, to say, hey, they brought in 2 new guys and maybe a Hakanpää in a third. And Connor Timmins, of course, still in the mix right now as we have this conversation as the 7th D. But the chemistry is a big thing to talk about too. And you hit the nail on the head. There's chemistry right there. I don't care if Sheldon Keefe's there or Craig Berube. More times than not, what you got last year was very, very successful from the Benoit McCabe pairing.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason for a guy like Benoit to struggle with confidence or to not be able to figure out what to do. He came in, yeah, expectations were low. He flew under the radar, but all you got to tell the guy is do the exact same thing. And having Craig Berube at the helm isn't going to hurt him one single bit. He's a Berube type of player. I think Craig can just leave him alone, let him do his thing, let him cook. But as far as having a little bit of experience in the market now, having a successful season, he just needs to play simple, confident, and physical like he has, and people are going to love him again. And I think he's going to have a supporting cast around him that makes the game even easier for him. So whatever pairing you want to call it, I could care less. He's going to get his minutes, and I think he's just got to do the exact same thing. There's nothing complicated about it.
You played D back in the day. Do we make too much about having a lefty with a righty on the back end?
I don't think we make too much of it. Guys can be uncomfortable being on that side. You're picking up a lot of things with your backhand. The way you wheel the net, you're going to be a little bit offhand, and there's an extra second to get to, where you can make that pass. You can't protect the puck as well sometimes, but it's nice to have a little bit of righties, but it seems like everyone in the league is looking for right-handed defensemen, and they're not always there. So you just got to go through and find the guy that's most comfortable playing on his off wing. And there's some positives too about it being on your one-timer side or whatever, but it's not ideal, but I don't think it's a game killer necessarily. Guys are capable of playing on their off wing.
Yeah, that's probably advice, and you could probably give it. You're a father to anybody who's got a kid coming up right now. Right-handed shooting defenseman's what you want, right, Rosie?
Yeah, my kids shoot right. I don't, but they
Oh,
both seem to shoot right. So we'll see where they end up. I don't know if you try to put a kid on D and they don't like it. They want to score highlight reel YouTube
true.
goals. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's really weird to me. Again, you look at the Tanev contract, it just seems like right-handed shooting defensemen are getting paid out the ass right now. Let's bring in today's guest. I've been tracking him for a while. Great to get him on the podcast. It's former Maple Leafs blue liner Cory Cross. What's going on, Cory? How are you? Sorry, Cory, we're
Muted.
just gonna have to reconnect with you with the right audio in line here. Appreciate it. We'll get to you in mere moments, but great to pick his brain as well. Coming up with the Pat Quinn era, man, there was some legends, absolute legends on that roster back in the day, Rosie.
Well, you were talking about when he scores that goal in 2001, how loud it was. Do you think it would be any less when JT scored the series winner 2 years ago?
I think so. It was just it was a different atmosphere, and we do want to get to that with Cory. I do believe we do have Cory Cross now. How are you, Cory?
I'm good. How about you guys?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for doing this. It's been a while since we've seen you in the Maple Leafs blue and white. What have you been up to?
Yeah, it's been like 20 years. Time flies by pretty quick. Yeah, no, I've been living in West Kelowna. When I retired, I got into coaching at University of Calgary, and I got into the oil and gas industry. Jay being from Olds, I'm from Lloydminster. We know Alberta's oil and gas country, and I got into some service rigs and coil tubing units, which service downhole oil wells. So I've been doing that for 20 years with a couple of different partners, and just mainly doing business development, doing sales in Calgary. Now I live in West Kelowna full time and travel to Calgary like once a quarter, and and just enjoying my kids and coaching kids and junior hockey and university hockey. So a little bit of everything.
Sounds awesome. Cory, before we get into, those Maple Leaf stuff, you had kind of an unconventional path to the NHL. Can you tell us a little bit about, your path and how you made it, and maybe that supplemental draft that people might not know about these days?
Well, it's a pretty famous draft, isn't it?
Well, you're one of the best to come out of it, that's for sure.
John Cullen and I. Yeah. You know what? I do have a unusual path, and I was a really late bloomer. Hit puberty really late, and hockey, of course, is a puberty game. All the kids that hit puberty early get an advantage, but I hit it late and end up going to going into University of Alberta, just going to go to school, and I took an ice hockey class, and the coach of the team was the instructor of the class, and he pretty much recruited me out of that class. I went to him after a month of school and asked him if there was a place I could play, and I didn't have a vehicle. I live right across the street from campus, so he gave me this junior B team's name, the Edmonton Royals, and I talked my roommate who had a car, talked him into playing as well, and we ended up having an unbelievable junior B team. It was all guys that were all buddies from South Edmonton and just going to university. So we probably could have beat some junior A teams that year. We had about 5 guys that should have been playing in the Western League, all going to university. So I played that, and then the coach invited me out to training camp the next year and made the team as an 8th defenseman. Just worked hard, and I just continued to get stronger and stronger, and ended up being top 4 defense in my second year, and we won the national championship. And then I got drafted in the supplemental draft to Tampa. Then the next year I became a league all-star, and we won the league again. And then I turned pro right after the season was over. So yeah, very, very unusual, but
that's awesome.
Good timing, good place, and good timing.
Yeah, that's a crazy pathway to get to the NHL. And then ultimately, as we know, you end up a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I love the Pat Quinn era, man. The black and blue Maple Leafs, you guys were just a joy to watch every year. I knew this team was, if they got to a Game 7, they're winning Game 7. They're a winning series. What was it like to play for the legendary Pat Quinn?
Well, it's funny how when I was playing, I was like, because in university, we always had systems, and I could never figure out why in the NHL there wasn't a lot of systems play, and we went to Toronto and there was 0 systems. There was like nothing. So And I look back at it now and I'm like, you know what? He just recognized the skill and talent we had on the team and just said, let's just drop the puck and go. And I remember some of our video meetings with Rick Lee and the poor video guy. He would put together like, I don't know, 10 minutes of videos. And Rick Lee would literally put it on and like, we've seen this before, fast forward. We've seen this before. They're trapping. We know how to break that. We would go through the video literally in like 2 minutes. We'd watch a little bit of power play, a little penalty kill, and that was it. And, you know, we were kind of looking around and we're like, Jesus, that's it, you know. But that was the way, you know, Pat knew our team would be successful. And, you know, we just had so much talent on that team. Unfortunately, we got to the teams like New Jersey who were structured, a little more structured and disciplined. And usually they got the best of us. But, I mean, we all enjoyed playing for Pat, and he's such a great man.
Well, that's back in the era when it took hours and hours and hours to put together a video too, not like today. So that was an extra kick in the head. But when you look back at your time in Toronto, does one particular D partner stand out to you as your favorite?
Well, you know, Aki Berg was my partner for a couple of years, and him and I had a really good chemistry. And Brian Berard, when I first got there, Brian Berard and I were teamed up. And if he wouldn't have had that accident, I think we would have been really successful. He was one of those guys. We just had great chemistry, and he would I would just give him the puck and he would take off and I would stay back. And, you know, so we had really good chemistry. And then Aki, of course, Aki was just a solid defenseman. We're very underrated.
What kind of leader was Matt Sundin?
Yeah, he was one of the best captains I played. I mean, I fortunately got to play with a lot of good captains: Yzerman, Messier, Mats. But you know, Mats was one of those guys. We had a lot of characters in the room, a lot of personalities, and Mats, with his just calm demeanor, was able to keep our team together and going in the right direction. And he just would pick those times where we needed a lift or we needed. Our leader just calm the room, and he'd be that calming voice, and just do some things that are just like, it would just kind of set you back. You're like, wow.
I bet. Well, with your 3 seasons in Toronto, you won 4 series, which, you know, isn't a Stanley Cup, but to today's standards and what they've done in the last 15 plus years, it seems special. What do you remember about being a Leaf, being around that city while you're winning series and having success like that?
Well, I feel bad for the Leaf fans. It's been so long since they've won, and when we were there, we're like, oh, it would be amazing if we could win, right? I mean, I think every team says that. I mean, how much fun it would be to win a Stanley Cup in Toronto. And it was 2002, and Dmitry Yuskevich and myself and Scotty McCabe, we were watching the Olympics, and Canada won, and you know, the city just went ballistic, and we went down to Yonge Street. I said, well, let's just go down to Yonge Street, just catch a glimpse of what's going on. And you know, the 3 of us are like, can you imagine if we won? Like, you know, this town would be unbelievable. And you know, I really thought we were going to win. My last year in 2002, I thought we were going to win that year. We just had so many injuries, and you know, we just ran out of gas. But yeah, it would just be unbelievable if that team could find a way to win.
There were so many legendary moments from that Maple Leafs team. For you specifically, round 1, 2001 playoffs, the Battle of Ontario, game 3. I believe it was Sergei Berezin had the puck, give it to Antropov. Antropov shoots it, as we see on the screen right now, and you hammer home the rebound. What do you remember about that goal in the OT winner in game 3?
Well, I remember we almost got scored on just before that, so I was like, oh my god. And I just followed the puck around, and when Nick took that shot, I was thinking, okay, he's either gonna miss the net wide and it's gonna come around the boards, or so I was kind of bussed into the boards, and then I saw the rebound and I just readjusted, and it bounced over my good buddy Rob Zomner's stick, and I just hit it perfectly. And I always, like Jay, you know, when you play that level, you just always shoot at the same spots over and over again. So it just came it was just a natural reaction for me to shoot in that spot.
Pretty special night, I bet. What you got to play in that 2014 alumni game at that big house? Had you been on your skates a lot prior to that, and what was that experience like? Pretty special to be in front of that crowd, I bet.
Yeah, that was fun. That was, it was good that they had 2 alumni teams, because there's no way I'm making. I probably should have been on the 5th alumni team, but you know what? I've been I was coaching in UFC and skating with. There's oil patch leagues in Calgary, so there's all different levels of hockey there. So I was playing in that, and then we have a Thursday night group here in Kelowna. That's a pretty good group of guys. Todd Simpson, Wade Redden, Jordan Tutu, Rennie Bork, Brent Seabrook. So we got a pretty good group of guys that skate every Thursday. And I've been on the ice, but going in there and seeing a lot of the guys that I hadn't seen for a few years, and some of the guys who I hadn't met, and just the way the Leafs and the Red Wings plan things, and me being on the Red Wings for a bit too. I knew quite a few guys on that team, so it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
I was in attendance for that game. I brought it up on this podcast. I just underdressed for this. I didn't wear boots or anything. It was the coldest day of my life and the longest game of my life. They shoveled the ice like every 3 minutes. Did you watch? Were you there for the actual game?
Yeah, we went. My one buddy, he was from Calgary. He came with me. Well, he purposely didn't move for like 2 periods, and his snow was building up on his coat. He had piles of snow up on his shoulders.
Oh, it was one of the coldest days of my life, but I'm sure it was amazing to play on that ice, but also the spectacle from the NHL, just the big shot too, I thought was really, really cool. And the Leafs won that game in a shootout, I believe, on a winner from Tyler Bozak. I want to turn it back to your era and the Pat Quinn era. And unfortunately, Leafs Nation lost to beauty in Sergei Berezin back in June. What do you remember about playing with Sergei Berezin?
Oh, Sarge was just a dynamic player. Like, he just could skate, could shoot, could score, and just you want to say kind of typical Russian scorer, right? Just play loose and going, right? And really sad. I'm not too sure what exactly happened, but I'm gonna miss him for sure. He was a big part of those teams and a great guy in the room. So really unfortunate. Unfortunately, we're just getting to that age where we're losing some teammates and friends, and it's quite sad.
Very nicely said, and certainly a legend in these parts, Sergei Berezin. I need you to debunk something for me. So I heard something about the Russians on that Pat Quinn Maple Leafs team, that in between periods, they used to hack darts in the laundry room. Can you confirm or deny that, Corey?
Oh, that was Markov.
It's true then, huh?
That is awesome.
Yeah, well, you couldn't go outside anymore, at the Maple Leaf Gardens, right? Guys would just go outside, but at Air Canada Center, he just went into the laundry room and blew the smoke through the dryer vents.
That's great. I heard that some of the guys were doing that back in the day, and I never had a chance to ask somebody from that vintage if it actually happened. So great. I mean, we just found out right now. Wanted to ask you, one of our big gripes on this podcast is the atmosphere at Scotiabank Arena. When you played there, was Air Canada Center. I believe you joined the team in year 2 of its existence. What was it like to play at Air Canada Center? It just seemed like that building was rocking. It didn't matter if it was a Saturday, a Monday, a Wednesday. It was great.
Yeah, but it's still the same as it is today. They had those great suites underneath the stands, and so a lot of people go under the stands and go into the suites, and you start drinking there and visiting, and 15 minutes, 20 minutes goes by pretty quick. So you don't really get to your seats until maybe the first whistle, right? So I still see it same as when we played. There were, the stands are still pretty empty. Unfortunately, the seats everything's just gotten expensive, and people. Regular people can't make it to the games anymore. It's unfortunate. So I think that's where you get a lot of the business businesses buying seats and people coming in and, sitting in those seats aren't maybe the biggest Leaf fans and the loudest people. They're more business people. So, yeah, I wish there would be go back to those times where, regular families could afford going to the games, but it's just not the way it is anymore.
Well, speaking of the Leafs of today, do you follow, where the Maple Leafs are at right now? And if so at all, what do you think of the state of the organization right now?
Yeah, no, I follow the team. I don't watch a lot during the regular season just because of the time difference. By the time we finish dinner, the games are over, and but during the playoffs, I watch a lot of hockey during the playoffs, and I like their team. I like what they've done this year. I love Tanev. I mean, if he can stay healthy, he's an absolute beast. Fans are going to love him. He's like a Dmitry Yushkevich in my day, just blood and guts and block everything. And he's going to really help that team. Hakanpää is a big defenseman to help the penalty kill. And trying to think of who else they got on the back end.
Ekman Larsson.
Ekman Larsson, he played great. In that role of a 5th, 6th guy, right? It's perfect for him. He's not that 1-2 guy anymore. And so bringing that leadership, some veterans onto the D core, and because I look at that team, it's always been the defense that's been the weak link for me. The last few years, and if the guys, it's such a different game in the playoffs, and the superstars have got to figure that out on how to get to the dirty areas, and he can't win on the outside in the playoffs, and a couple of those guys got to learn how to get dirty and get inside.
And it's funny, Corey, just to wrap, everything comes full circle, because again, looking back a year era, the price you had to pay to win in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and now the Maple Leafs are trying to get bigger and stronger on the back end. And you look at the teams who win in the Stanley Cup playoffs, that's sort of the DNA that they take on, even dating back to when the St. Louis Blues won a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, 100%. I still think it's size and strength wins. Unfortunately, you got two different seasons. You got the regular season where you got the little guys, you're calling tight penalties, and the little guys are dynamic and they can get into spots and be successful. So you make the playoffs with your fast team, your quick team, and then you get to the playoffs, and definitely the games are called differently, and those little guys sometimes aren't the most effective. And as series go on, it's big guys that have the ability to just withstand the physicality of the playoffs and keep their strength throughout the long series.
I just love it that you won like 4 playoff series in like 3 years with the Maple Leafs, and they've won 1 playoff series in the past decade. So it speaks for itself. Really, really appreciate the time here and catching up, Corey. We'll talk soon. Okay, have a great rest of your summer.
Yeah, nice to see you guys. Yeah, I'm going to be in for my daughter's going to TMU next year, so hopefully I'm going to be in quite a bit more. So
nice.
Awesome. We'll try to link up at some point. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay.
Thanks, Corey.
Thanks, guys. Have a good morning.
Take care. The one and only Cory Cross, back from the vintage of the Pat Quinn era. It's just always cool to hear those stories, man. Like player after player that he just mentioned, like even Dmitry Yushkevich, man. Like those guys were just, I remember watching in like high school and like in, grade school, just cut from a different cloth, especially the way they played in the playoffs, like way different animal.
Yeah, well, you got, the personnel they had, they adopted a mentality. Like he says, you go into the playoffs and you totally understand the assignment and what you need to do. And everyone bought into it. Didn't matter where you're from or who you are, you got to elevate your game and your physicality. And like Corey said, get to the dirty areas to produce and get some production going. And they just simply haven't done that. And, they've shored up their D, I think, on paper this year, and that's going to help. But like Corey said, those big boys, those superstars, I mean, the trophies and the points and the stuff like that is cool, but you need to figure out how to play in the playoffs, how to win in the playoffs, how to score a goddamn goal in the playoffs, how to get the power play going in the playoffs. Figure it out. You are a big-time all-star player. now's the bloody time. You're like you said, time ticks away, and all of a sudden you're 40 years old. Time's ticking for these guys. You lose 6 years, you lose 5 years. Sorry, time is ticking. It doesn't always wait for you. I really think for the forward group and for those superstars on the team, the time is now. Figure your shit out, get ready for the playoffs, learn from it, and change something in that time. Like he says, man, it's a different animal. It's a different beast. And I don't think in my mind they have accepted that in theirs.
Yeah, all I remember from that era, Rosie, is the fucking scary eyes, the Tucker scary eyes, the Corson scary eyes. Like you're not beating us tonight. And if you're gonna beat us, we're gonna drag you down with us. And I don't get that feel. I don't get that sense. Granted, it's 2024. You can't kill guys and spear guys the way they did back in the day. It was just a different type of hockey. But like that, I hate to lose mentality, like the Easton Cowan effect. I love that in a player, and that's all I remember about that era, man. Those teams. Yeah, they lost games in the playoffs, man, but they were difficult to play in the playoffs, and they took a pound of flesh if you beat them.
And they weren't quote unquote as talented as these guys,
Yeah.
but I mean, I look at clips of Darcy Tucker back in the day, and it just oozes that fucking intense hockey that everyone loves. It's fun to play that way. It's fun to have a guy on your team that way, and it's fun to be a fan of someone that plays that way. And like you say, the scary eyes, like they're just out there with intensity. Guys these days play with scared eyes. They look around. What is it? Why did you? Can't we just play it? Can't we just take it easy tonight? I know it's the playoffs. Like, sorry, something's got to change this year with the big boys. And I hope that, with the back end, we were talking about McCabe and Benoit. I hope those guys get those scary eyes going and everyone's firing on all cylinders and you get some kind of an identity under Craig Berube, because we're running it back. That is what it is. But nonetheless, if the personnel's not going to change, then the attitude's got to change.
Man, I know they lost that series, but I still have dreams just thinking about that Darcy Tucker hit on Kapanen, dude. I've never seen somebody get hit that hard, aside from the Wendell Clark hit back in the day. But that was playoff hockey. I know we had Jeremy Roenick on back in November, but man, that was my lasting image and memory of being a Leafs fan in the early 2000s. Hitting a guy so hard, he had no clue where the fuck he was for about 10 minutes.
Oh, Tucker, man, I just can't say enough about him. I loved him growing up. He was just the way he played was unreal. And I always get little clips, some that I haven't even seen, come across my feed of him just being an animal and playing with intensity. It's very simple. Intensity. Play with intensity. Do not back down from anything. Go get that goddamn puck. Take that hit. Like whatever it takes, it's an easy formula. You just got to commit to it. And in my mind, these Leafs of this era have not committed to that. They've hoped they win. They've hoped that it's good enough, and they've shit the bed every time pretty much in the playoffs. And, again, fingers crossed this year's different. These guys have a different mentality, and you can only hope that Craig Berube instills that in everybody.
Really enjoyed that interview with Cory Cross. Again, we're going to try our best here. Season number 3, fastly approaching of Leafs Morning Take. Can't believe it's already been 2 years, but I want to get some more guys on from that era, the Pat Quinn era. It's just been difficult. We've tried on guys like Corson and Tucker and others. We'll keep trying, but many thanks to Cory Cross for dropping on Leafs Morning Take today. It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. I hope you didn't have any loot on the Canadian men's basketball team. Oof.
So I wasn't able to watch it, but apparently there was some pretty seriously horrendous lopsided reffing going on.
Yeah, but man, it's like the double IHF. Like you just subscribe to the fact that the officiating at the Olympics is going to be dog shit. Just like I watched the World Juniors or I watched the World Championship, and I'm like, why was that called? I think it's so easy in basketball to blame the officials. I just think ultimately what happened, again, I'm not some basketball expert, but Canada had no bigs. And then when you have that freak of nature, I don't know if you've seen him, Victor Wembanyama, dude, the guy's like 7'6". He is the future of the NBA. They just had no answer for him and Gobert, and pretty simple why they lost. But I think a little unfortunate. People were talking about them being the second best team aside from Team USA in that tournament.
Shit. Yeah, that's too bad. I mean, at least you're seeing Canada step up in ways like with women's soccer, men's basketball. That stuff we weren't even on the bloody planet for, in recent memory. And obviously they've they've cleaned up their programs and put together some talent and really stepped it up. So I think it's cool just to be in the conversation. Am I a huge soccer fan? No. Big basketball fan? No. But it's nice when your country's actually in the conversation with that kind of stuff. But I think I missed it. I was watching Gabby Thomas yesterday take the gold down. She's pretty wicked.
Yeah, you've mentioned her quite a bit on the podcast. And I was interested to know that Summer McIntosh actually, I don't know why this is the case. I guess she had nothing else to do, but came back to Canada. So she's not going to be the flag bearer for the closing ceremonies, which is a bit surprising. Wouldn't you want to take in as much as you can at the Olympics? Like, maybe she's 17. I mean, what are you going to do there at that? But it's Paris. You would think she would stay, but maybe she had other obligations.
But it's a long time. Like they spread those events out for so long that, the guys and girls that go later aren't going to be at the opening ceremonies necessarily. And if your event is quick and easy and you're done and the swimming's all, should not like it's done the first couple of days, but then you might not be able to hang out because I think they might kick you out of your accommodations and stuff like that. And then how long can you hang out? I don't know. It's it is kind of weird. You just assume everyone's there for the entire time, but it's not. But I imagine she's kind of chomping at the bit to get back home and see the new world that she's going to be living in, which will be pretty exciting.
A lot of commercials upcoming for Summer McIntosh, Summer of Summer. And I don't know about you. One of my bucket list items has been to cover an Olympics, and I have 2026 circled for a variety of reasons. Namely, it is in Milan, and I think that would be unbelievable to watch hockey in Milan, Italy, coming up in a couple years' time. And that those rosters, Canada, or the NHL players are going back to the Olympics. I think that's going to be great. I know we have the Four Nations coming up next year, but like to get all the world powers back in the mix for, we've been deprived the last 10 years of hockey in the Olympics. I think that's going to be outstanding too.
Well, my kid was asking, he's like, what the hell is breakdancing doing in the Olympics and stuff? I'm like, you look at the sport, like it's supposed to kind of be traditional sports in the Olympics. And like you said, we've talked about it before, how some pretty traditional sports like lacrosse isn't in the Olympics. Why would lacrosse be there? It's like an ancient game almost, but fucking breakdancing makes me roll my eyes a little bit. But there's a lot of stuff going on at the Olympics. It's pretty neat, but you can't always get what you want.
Very well said, and we'll leave it at that for today's edition. Producer Vic is going on vacation. We're going to take a bit of a sabbatical where we're going to record some stuff next week, I believe. We're going to do an interview as well with your former coach, Dallas Aikens, now coaching Adler Mannheim in the Dell in the German league. So we're going to catch up with Dallas, and you're going to hear that next week here on Leafs Morning Take. But it's to me, summer's going pretty quickly here, Rosie. Next thing you know, we'll be back in the mix in a couple weeks here, and we'll get closer and closer to training camp here.
Yeah, it's clicking by. Once you get into August, first week is already gone and just turned, so it won't be long for sure. We'll be doing real hockey here before we know it.
Yes, sir. Sending our love to everybody involved here in the podcast. Producer Vic, have a great time on vacation. Everybody in the chat, you guys were great. At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button, Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Don't forget as well to visit theleafsnation.com. And to today's guest, thank you very much, Cory Cross.
And
yes,
happy birthday, Nikolai.
Thank you,
Not
Rosie.
just Crosby that gets the accolades today. You as well. Have a good day.
35, and we made it through a podcast without any more technical hiccups, which we'll call a victory here on Leafs Morning Take. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.